Welcome. I've created a series of open channel flow animations that I'd like to share with you. This animation is one in a series of videos I've made that examines how normal depth varies with several different channel or flow properties. Here we examine the role of increasing channel discharge. Before we start this animation, let's first go over the different subfigures on the screen. So this upper right figure here is a picture of the channel itself. The black is the channel bottom, the slope is fixed, and this ticker you will see will increase as discharge increases. Hard to see at this point because the depth is so small, but the water surface is drawn in blue and a dashed red line is included to show critical depth. In the upper right, we're showing various channel quantities, the normal depth in blue, the hydraulic radius in magenta, and the Froude number in cyan. And each of these quantities is plotted against the thing that's varying, the channel discharge. Please note that the horizontal axis is discharge on a log scale. Similarly, that same discharge on log scale is in the lower left graph. We have depth on the vertical, and you will see first we start out mild. Later on, as the discharge increases, we're going to move to steep conditions. So right now we're showing that where the M1, M2, and M3 curves reside, and when the discharge increases such that steep conditions prevail, then we'll see where the S1, S2, and S3 curves reside. Finally, we have the energy depth diagram, or EY diagram, and we're plotting three quantities: the normal depth, Y naught, the alternate to normal depth, Y alternate or Y naught alternate, and then the conjugate to the normal depth, Y naught conjugate. Unfortunately, in this animation, so that I could have flows that are both subcritical for one range and supercritical for another range, it turns out that the conjugate depth is never much different than the alternate depth. And so you will apparently see just one of these quantities, the conjugate, but you should know that the alternate is just beneath it. Okay, let's set this animation in motion and see what we can see. I'm going to first back up the animation to the beginning and set it forward. There we've crossed critical, the discharge that corresponds to critical conditions, and you can see that the cyan curve, which shows the Froude number, has shifted from something less than 1 to something greater than 1, crossing that threshold along this vertical line. You can see the depth has increased slightly, and you can see that the EY diagram has shifted to the right, and that's all of these observations are just going to grow more pronounced as the animation plays out further. So let's let this continue to evolve. Okay, you can now start to see, let me pause for just a second. You can now start to see a slight differentiation here of the magenta area where the S2 curves will live. So these are the barrier, or the dividing line, is going to be a function of the normal depth. So the normal depth is basically the lower range of the magenta here, and if you can imagine, it would actually be the upper range, which unfortunately is essentially invisible because the normal depth and critical depth are so close to one another. But here you can start to see some differentiation. So the normal depth is the lower border of the S2 range, the critical depth is the upper border, and then of course the S1s are going to be any depth that's greater than critical depth. Again, over here in the EY diagram, you can see that the normal depth is lower than its conjugate, and the alternate is directly below the conjugate. Let's let this animation play through to completion. The differentiation will grow a little bit more pronounced. And there we are at completion. The EY diagram has almost rotated completely off of the original set of axes. You can see that the area that differentiates the S3 from the S1, which is the magenta S2 area, is extremely small, meaning that critical and normal depth are very close to one another. And that's borne out by how close these 2 points are to one another, both of them very close to critical conditions. You can see, interestingly, that the Froude number initially rose and then seemed to plateau, and perhaps is even diminishing ever so slightly as the discharge increases more. Okay, and with that, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions by entering them in the comment area below. Also, you can click in the description to this animation and watch other videos that are pointed to there explaining other concepts from my book. Thank you.